Mr. Vroom, you touched on it just a minute ago. I want to dial into this just a minute. As a business guy, taking 11 years, $280 million to bring a product to market is not competitive. I get the gravity of this. I get the dangers. I understand how important it is for what did you say, 7.5 billion folks out there who need food. But you also say in your testimony that in that the biggest regulatory challenge to EPA's performance is implementing the Endangered Species Act and the harmonization with FIFRA for pesticide registration, and that we're averaging somewhere between 950 and 1,100 days compared to the 730 target. Right. Specifically, what do we need to think about as an industry, and what can you help us with that would speed that up and address the 11 years and $280 million of product entry?
Well, Senator Perdue, thank you for that question. Of course, there are endangered species in every state in the union. Some states have more than others, and some states have more that are at the intersection or potentially or in theory at the intersection with farming and production agriculture than others. But it's everywhere. And we all want to ensure that we can protect the environment and that threatened and endangered species and their habitats, which are all very carefully described under the Endangered Species Act that's now been in place for 45 years. We want to respect that and ensure that those goals are achieved. But in the 16 years since some organizations have decided to use the courts to try to get a new interpretation of what EPA should do under the Endangered Species Act, we've seen no additional protections for endangered species. But it's added 15 to 20% resource consumption by EPA to respond to these paper procedural matters and to the court cases. We have, as an association on behalf of our members, participated in over a dozen of those federal lawsuits. Most of them have been successfully managed. We've gone through discovery and arguments in the courts. But at the end of the day, we now see that those same activist organizations are litigating over brand new chemistries. It used to be just old chemistries. Now it's holding up access to new chemistry approvals to get to the marketplace. And so amending the Endangered Species Act is not easy for Congress. We were part of a coalition that attempted to do that 10 years ago and failed. We think that a fresh look at that, but also with regard to administrative improvements that could be done by both the Department of Interior and Commerce, USDA, and EPA might be another pathway or a combination along with things that Congress might be able to assist with. So we'd like to come back to you and talk more about those ideas because, again, it impacts more than just our industry. It's vital for farmers. Certainly ranchers in the West have got lots and lots of issues with regard to endangered species and the ability to graze animals and the like. So a very important topic that needs a lot more time and attention. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Black, I'm impressed. Cooperative federalism. I didn't know you had 5-syllable words in your vocabulary.
Thank you.
But would you expand on that a little bit and talk about specifics in Georgia where you may have started applying that concept?
Well, Senator, thank you. And that again, that's a term that goes back to that some learned folks have discussed for now over 200 years of what the relationship should be between the federal government and the state government. But let me boil it down this way to put it in my terms. So it is that we work together. All those stakeholders that have a role in enforcing the law should work together and communicate. And we should have a servant's mind about it. That our job here is really not to be the government to hide in the weeds to jump out and say boo, but that we should not be afraid to say yes if, and guide it that way. One maybe example that comes immediately here to Georgia is that there's been a product, and I honestly do not understand the details of this, but there's a product that's been approved that we wish we would all, I'm certain that we'd all would want to work to try to solve feral hogs. If I have any, if I have a call a day, that's a light day for people trying to solve feral hogs. What are we going to do? Well, there's an EPA-approved product. You've probably seen that's been in the news. Some colleagues out west approved it. We will not approve that in the state of Georgia because it harms wildlife. And I don't understand why they didn't figure that out to start with. And so that's where if you had that cooperation between the states, and the states have a seat at the table on a wide range of subject matter. And actually, we believe this is really important at FDA, the implementation of the Food Safety Modernization Act, and a wide range of other deals where we're on the ground every day. And we'd like for some folks maybe continued open invitations for Washington to come to the ground where the work's being done. And I promise you, we'll be good hosts in Georgia.
Can I ask Ms. Ruiz just one quick question? And thank you for your forbearance. Ms. Ruiz, the 18-year-old rule for application, and I understand the seriousness of the dangers around these products. I'm interested, was there a comment period, and what comments did you get from family farms about the 18-year rule? I'm not debating, I'm not arguing against it, but as a person who did a lot of work on a farm below the age of 18. I'm curious as to what impact it had, what kind of comments you got back from small family farms.
For both the worker protection standard and the certified pesticide applicator rules, there is an exemption for family members from that minimum age requirement.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That will conclude our hearing.